I meet people now, whether it's members here at the gym or someone I'm just going to meet in a moment, I never let go of that people are carrying that stuff all the time. And people don't have it all together as much as we want to make it seem, or how much that we want it for ourselves. And that's okay.
Hello, and welcome to Working Your Way, the podcast dedicated to exploring the journey of authenticity in the workplace and discovering how to navigate it your way. I'm your host, Sandhya Sadakar, and today my guest is Paul Tadalan. Paul is the founder and owner of Hiraya Training House, which is a unique fitness community here in Chicago that's built on the principle of belonging. But before he found his calling as a leader in fitness and community building, Paul's career took him on a really diverse path, from his service in the Air Force to exploring journalism to website design and content production, and eventually into marketing. In this episode, we dive into Paul's story, exploring the pivotal moments that shaped his journey and the lessons he's learned about identity, resilience, and finding purpose. Paul opens up about processing the challenges of his past, the role of community in creating lasting impact, and how his personal values now guide his approach to business and leadership. I can't wait to share this conversation with you, so let's get into it. Okay, Paul, welcome to Working Your Way. I'm excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me on. It's really excited to be here.
We're going to get into what you're doing now, which is being the founder and owner of Hiraya Training House. But I want to start this conversation by just talking a little bit about all the different kind of chapters of your career. Like, can you just share a little bit about what types of jobs did you do before you landed in the fitness space?
Yeah, so I grew up in Chicago and I was kind of a troublesome kid growing up. So right out of high school, I needed some direction in my life. So I joined active duty Air Force, and that was from 2004 to 2010, 2011. And that was during the high points in the Iraq War. And I had a really successful start there. And I had a choice of re-enlisting. And I knew that if I would re-enlist, that I would be committed for 20 years till I'd retire from it. And that wasn't for me, because even though it was interesting, it was the best and worst times of my life. I knew I needed to do something else. And this kind of I've always, my journey has been and continued to be. So I did come back to Chicago, sat in one community college class, and I could not adjust. And it was like, this is way too much sitting in this classroom. And I literally, after that class, went right to the library, looked up jobs back overseas, and said, I'm going to get out of here. So I packed up my bags and sent myself back overseas, jumping around Afghanistan and Kuwait. And I did that for a while, like a year or so, training Afghani police officers and shipping things around and stuff and moving around. And after a year of that, I thought, and I was in my young 20s still, and this is at the peak of the climb of Facebook and stuff. And I'd be online in these little computers and seeing all my friends having a really good time. And I was here going through all the things that you can imagine. And everybody around me had been older guys with families, and they were out there for years after year after year trying to support their family. And I thought, is this really what I want for myself? So I got out and went back to that same community college class. And I've always really been into writing and performing arts and creating things. So I said I wanted to be a war journalist. And so I went to school for journalism and web development, because at this time newspapers were going out of print and everything was going online. So I was like, I should pick up some online skills. So journalism and web development, I picked up a camera and I started doing different video pieces and photo pieces and freelance like writing jobs. And I started building websites and doing like online design, and that journalism career turned into a marketing career because businesses didn't know how to put videos on their websites and create websites and create content. And I started doing like some small little projects and picking up different things. And then after that, I found myself in an actual, like, with a company in a marketing position on the marketing team of this life coaching company that trained people in social and emotional intelligence. It was a good place for me to be in because throughout this time, I still had not processed a lot of that military stuff, and it was really showing up in very, self-sabotaging ways. So I was always trying to find some sort of meaning and purpose after the military, and I always felt like I wasn't doing that, so I was feeling a little depressed and really sad about my life. At the same time, I went to school after being terrible in school. I went back to, finally went to college and did great in school and landed this job. But I started doing some personal growth work, just working at where I was working. It was kind of mandatory to take the training classes and stuff if we were to market. And I started really getting interested in human development and positive psychology and community and creating deeper connections and deeper relationships and understanding who you are and why you do the things that you do based on your upbringing and your environment, and how do we create more meaningful connections with other people socially and interpersonally and intimately and professionally. So I love doing that, but it was also an interesting time in life because it was an interesting place to work.
You were in the Air Force and then you came back and you're in this coaching company that was doing
Yeah.
emotional intelligence and self exploration, right? Life coaching. And so you're absorbing the curriculum, both because you had to take the classes, but also because you're making content for them. And
Yeah.
that's like such an interesting moment because you said yourself, it's like, you maybe needed to process some things. And I can't imagine what better environment to process than going through life coaching classes. And I'm just really curious about that moment because it feels like the right resources were in front of you at a time that you needed them. What did you take away from that time? I'm sure there was a lot, but what'd you learn about yourself?
There's so much there. I taking the time to process my past experiences, childhood traumas, how I felt about the work that I did in the military and those mixed emotions and these situations that I was in, and, you know, processing everything that was going on with me at the time after the military and the kind of self-sabotage. And even though I was doing all these great things professionally during the day or academically during the day, at night, I would stay up. I couldn't, I was having problems sleeping, and, my mind would go. So I'd hit the streets and kind of just be up all night drinking or partying or doing, substance abuse. And it was just on this downward spiral. At the time, I kind of felt that I was two different personalities tearing at each other, and and they weren't speaking to each other. And but at the same time, during the day, I was trying to do something good out in the world, but also carrying all these emotions with me. So, man, I would do these classes and these training things, and I don't think after the military I ever took time to just sit and, I'm getting a little choked up about it now, but just cry, and just I was just finding these moments, these beautiful moments where I'm just sobbing and weeping and kind of understanding, like, whoa, all this stuff is here all the time. And it's so stressful kind of holding all that stuff in. And it's so much better to share it with other people and share it with myself and practice self-compassion and self-love and nurture myself. And my father had passed away during that time. So just kind of, self-parent myself. And my biggest takeaways from, there's so many, but I would say the lens I can look at that now is when I meet people now, whether it's members here at the gym or someone I'm just gonna meet in a moment, I never let go of that people are carrying that stuff all the time. And people don't have it all together as much as we wanna make it seem, or how much that we want it for ourselves, and that's okay. So anybody that I meet or walks through the store, I assume, like, "Hey," and I just, it's a lot of projections of myself. I'm like, "Hey, these people are carrying something with them, and I look at them thinking, "Hey, my relationship with this person is gonna be a whole lot better if I get to know this person and let this person know that whatever is going on with you, to just love who you are and do that." And, that kinda shows up on a day to day, but yeah, you're right. It was and we've do from reading books to doing workshops and exercise and engagement things and sharing deep things. It was an interesting time. If anything, it helped me be okay with who I am and learning more about who I am and the beauty of learning those things about other people.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's like such a really wild experience and like very cool moment in your life, like learning how to just be with your own emotions. Like I can relate to you in the sense of like it's just easy to keep moving forward a lot of times and not pause and process, right, and feel and all those things that feel really difficult sometimes. And so having the space to do that, but I also hear in that you develop this like huge amount of empathy for other people because you were able to kind of extend that to yourself and explore all the stuff that you were carrying around. And I just think that that's, gosh, what a like, you had many formative experiences along this career journey that I can hear, and like that being a pretty profound one.
Yeah.
I mentioned this before, but wow, I feel like this moment in Paul's life was such a meaningful one. As we continue to talk about Paul's career today, later in the episode, you'll hear how much this empathy comes into his work as a leader and a coach. Now, there's no doubt that this chapter in his life and career played a really big role in shaping who he is today and the path that he's on. Now, I do a lot of work with leaders that I coach, and the work I do personally in my own growth is really about understanding why we are the way we are and exploring the patterns of our own thoughts and feelings, including when we avoid them and why. And when we do this, we can kind of heal ourselves by becoming aware of those ways of being and putting new practices into place. Oftentimes, our coping strategies as young people really helped us survive difficult things. And now, those same intelligent strategies are the very things that get in the way of us showing up the way that we want to later in life, like in how we relate to others or how we lead. And this is incredibly important life work, and it's not easy stuff to do, but it is so worth it. And doing it helps make these great, understanding, and empathetic people like Paul. Now, I'm going to get a little bit sappy here, but one of my favorite quotes, I guess you would call it, is from a psychiatrist named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And she's most well known for her work around grief. She was the one who identified the 5 stages of grief that we often hear about today, like denial and anger and bargaining. And she says, the most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen. So yeah, let's pause there just for a second. So as we get back into the conversation, Paul shares more about his career journey, going from the marketing career that he had built into starting his career in fitness.
I was just getting really burnt out of this whole kind of marketing career that I had. And fitness was always a big thing. So I was also like training on the side and doing other like fitness projects and kind of fitness ambassador things for like brands like Nike and stuff. And so fitness was becoming a big part of my life and growing. And then one day, as I was working downtown teaching marketing at a college, my fiance at the time, Lonnie, said, "Hey, I found this gym on a Groupon. Do you want to go do this group fitness stuff with me. And I said, hey, that's great. I'd love to go with you. And we went. And I had just been doing fitness and training and working out things at like big box gyms, like an X Sport or like a right now, like a Planet Fitness or a Lifetime or something. And I fell in love with this aspect of community that I haven't felt for a long time since I had been in the military. And I kept coming to these classes with my wife and the owner at the time. When he started this gym, he had actually just got out of prison and was on his own path of doing something that was meaningful to him. And he said, hey, I'm looking for trainers. And I said, hey, I kind of want to change my career. I'm done with this corporate marketing life and sitting behind a computer for 18 hours a day and staying up all night. So I'll take whatever you can and I'll teach whatever classes and clients that you're willing to give up. And I'd love to try to be a full-time trainer. And he said, hey, that's great, but we have to grow this gym. And it was like in a small little office space in Printers Row downtown. And eventually it took all the marketing skills that I had and started applying it to the website and the marketing funnels and everything. And we started growing that community and that grew into a much bigger gym. And during this time, that transition, I told my wife, hey, I'm going to be a trainer full time. And I know we just got engaged and we have this wedding to pay for. And we're in this apartment high rise downtown, but I really want to do this training full time. So to this day, I can't thank my wife enough for supporting me through that decision, because I would imagine not everybody would be so confident in their partner to do things like that. But at the same time, at the time I was only doing like one class a week, one client a week. So to make up the other end, I'd go and I'd drive Uber and Lyft in the middle of the night to make rent so my wife wouldn't have to support me. So I could just barely make my side of the rent. And, debt was stacking up and could barely pay rent. But classes that gym started to grow and I kept following like, hey, this is where I want to be. This is where I'm happy. And that gym grew and I started picking up more clients. And at one point, I had an opportunity to go move out west with my wife and go do some other work with some larger brands. And the person that owned that gym said, hey, I know you're trying to move, but would you like to start a gym with me somewhere in Chicago? And I said, well, this fitness thing has been going great. So yeah, sure. Why not? So that was in 2018. And we opened up a gym, Fit Results Logan Square, and it's still there and doing great. But we opened that gym 2019 and we had a great first year. And we're like, we're going to have a great second year. And then COVID happened. And
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
and they're like, we're shutting down all the businesses and nobody could go outside. And so luckily, before that shutdown happened, told my partner at the time, I said, hey, we can take everything online. And because I had this background in media development and in my past jobs, I was doing a lot of online training classes for these, emotional intelligence workshops. Like, hey, we can do online classes. I have the equipment for it. We could do a class every single day, multiple classes a day, every online. So that's what we did. We shut down. And the next day, I remember standing in front of this computer and said, hey guys, Coach Paul here. We're taking this online. And
Wow.
so every single day throughout that whole time, I was doing live classes, hoping other people would be there on the screen, but people would send me pictures or videos of them carrying sandbags and carrying bags of rice,
Right. Whatever they had in their pantry.
whatever they had. And so we got through that together and then got through everybody coming back in and quarantining and the mask mandate and vaccinations. And so I did that for 4 years.
Yeah. And you mentioned, you had this sense of community when you were in the military, and that was something you looked forward to having in the fitness space. And I'm curious, like growing up, what did community look like to you, or maybe not look like to you?
So I'm a first generation immigrant. My parents came here in like the 60s, 70s, and my parents worked a lot. And it was just me and my older brother. And he was 6 years older than me. So he was just more responsible of me being okay as my mom worked night shift at the hospital. And my dad did his job during the daytime. And we didn't have a lot of family leadership. So I just connected to whoever I could feel comfortable with, comfortable and safe.
Mhm.
And growing up, I was always kind of drawn to art and culture and music. So growing up, community looked like, you know, breakdancing with my friends and DJ. And also another part of me that actually explored also after the military, I was also like really into music and theater and singing. And, I was in the choir, and there was a time when after the military, I did like theater in Chicago and stuff, which again also played down the road and stuff. But also during that time, like growing up, I also found myself in some sketchy situations, hanging around with people probably not the best, and doing the best things for someone, 15, 16 years old. But community looked like, people of my culture as a Filipino, but that were older than me. I spent probably a lot of my teenage years doing a lot of things shouldn't be doing, like drinking and smoking and things. But that was community to me because my parents weren't there, and trying to find that, and it was safe to me. So I just attached to wherever I felt safe, and I always felt kind of out of place as an immigrant, as a Filipino immigrant. I think I was always a product of where I ended up, and I didn't end up in good places, but it felt good at the time.
It's connection, right? I think we look for that in whatever ways that we can find it, even when it's maybe not the best for us, but we do what we can to survive, right? Our early years. So when you started training, you had a couple of clients, and then you had some more clients, and you eventually opened up a second gym for this company. What did you love about that work? What lit you up about that work, and what was difficult about it?
After several years in this company of just trying to sell people, like working in marketing, it was all about selling and sales tactics and funnels, and just trying to sell products that, you know, people ultimately didn't need, and creating relationships behind a computer, and reaching out to people you never made eye contact with. When I found fitness as a profession, I loved the idea of the immediacy of the impact, and kind of creating these great relationships with people right in front of me, and seeing the positive impact of, someone being able to do something for the first time, or having the more confidence, and the ability to do things that they never thought that they could do, and creating these authentic relationships. A lot of people that throughout the years, I'm still great friends with, and to this day, and I just love the connection of it,
Yeah.
the authentic connection based on, yeah, fitness is an easy sell, right? We all have to do it. It's something that we ultimately all know we have to do, whether we choose to do it or not. And it's something that you can do by yourself anywhere. You can do it by yourself. I did it with nothing in the middle of a desert in a tent with nothing on the other side of the world. You can do any of this stuff by yourself, and you can go to an LA Fitness and do any workout by yourself. But I just love the idea of, hey, why do it by yourself when having connection with other people is so much better? And it becomes like fitness is just this thing that brings us together, but it's really about these relationships that we can create, and fostering these new experiences with each other, and this grandiose idea that, hey, like, I can look at two people that are best friends today and are standing at someone's wedding or holding someone else's baby. I'm like, hey, this is cool. Like, they wouldn't have had this relationship today if wasn't for trying to create a good experience through fitness for them to keep coming back and do these things together. So to me, it's always about the connection. And if you create these positive experiences with people doing fitness, doing healthy things, you're more likely to do these things moving forward, because it's easy to walk into a gym and feel really bad about yourself and wonder, why does everyone have it together but me? And feel like really bad about yourself that why can't I do these things that other people are doing? But so I always want to keep in mind, like, hey, we have to do things and create positive experiences and tie happy emotions to these things for them to want to keep doing it again and again and again, and hopefully bring other people in their lives to do it with them so that we can all kind of have that positive impact for each other. So connection and impact, like right in front of my face.
This conversation about connection and belonging is a really important one in Paul's business, but also in general in every workplace or community space. And it's a tricky one because I like to say belonging is in the eye of the beholder. No one of us can say that we create an environment of belonging. Now, we can create a space that's welcoming and inclusive in our perspective, but that doesn't guarantee that everyone who walks into it will feel like they belong. So, for leaders, it's really about creating that space and challenging if we're designing a workplace or a community from our own perspective, or if we're really seeing others' needs and trying to do our best to design for everyone. Now, the more I have conversations with people who are building careers with this really deep sense of purpose, the more I see how directly their work is tied to their own life story and something that they maybe needed more of at some point in their life. Now, as a child of immigrants myself, I can relate to that feeling of never really feeling like everybody else at school. And today, a lot of my business is about belonging, helping teams feel more connected and cohesive. Paul's life story and his deep desire to feel that belonging, whether it was with the kids in his neighborhood or the people he served with overseas, really informs how he is creating a safe, inclusive, and welcoming space for people to come and work out and to connect with each other. Belonging and community are infused into how he shows up every single day. Yeah. I mean, very tangibly. And you mentioned, it's not just like somebody lifting a weight they've never lifted before, but like building confidence in their capabilities of doing things they didn't think that they could do. It's like it's so much bigger than just the exercise that they're doing.
Yeah, I always tell my mantra in life is because I've done so many different and weird things, and I've only like touched the surface of all these like weird jobs that I took on trying to, make ends meet. And my mantra is kind of always like, hey, it doesn't matter what you do, it's who you are doing whatever it is you're doing. And so, whatever it is that I am doing, I'm always trying to find that kind of deeper yearning people, and that so regardless of what it is, I can find some sort of fulfillment in it. And it's over the years, it's been, as long as I'm helping people feel better about who they are, and creating community with people and feeling good about who I am. It's like I think I could try to find that through what I'm doing. If I can't find that, then I'm not doing the right thing. I mean, like, who can get mad at helping people live longer, healthier lives? And as someone that's like always searching for purpose and meaning and
Yeah.
needs that, I need some sort of like I'm a millennial that needs I need that like purpose and life satisfaction. And I'll take less money for more good feelings. There's plenty of times I've thought, man, if I stayed in that marketing job, I'd X amount, or if I stayed in the military, damn, I would have retired today. But man, it's been such a great experience making that decision to kind of follow that passion. I have to keep doing the things where I feel best or I feel good about myself, and wherever I feel like, oh, my next best self is here.
Mm, love
And if I
that.
leave, I'm not going to find it. Yeah. So, kind of stepping into that next vision.
Yeah. And so talk about, I mean, as we come into kind of the current moment, how did you know it was time for you to leave your past gym where you were, essentially working for somebody, but had been opened a gym and, built a new community? How did you know when it was time to leave and start your own thing?
We from a legal standpoint, right? It was actually three of us, and one person just had the majority. So they ultimately had last say in everything that we did, which is fine. That's part of business. It's part of the game. And up to that point, throughout the years that I had worked with him, and from a leadership standpoint, I was taught like, hey, if you want to be a good leader, you got to be a good follower. And I tried to be the best follower and do everything I could do to make him and that gym, as successful as can be. And during that time, he gave me a lot of opportunity to do things that, and run with things that I wanted to do. But there were more moments that, started stacking on of these times I had these like ideas and these great ideas that I wanted to do and, that couldn't get executed or there was too much, you know, back and forth, too much disagreement. And it always just came down to, well, I don't have full say here. And the things that I want to do and things that I want to create are not going to happen. And, to that point, I was like, hey, I can create the things I want being here. But then it came to a point like, hey, this isn't my vision anymore. And I was wrestling with it. And there was one holiday, a New Year's Eve, I was going into 2023 and I was laying in bed with my wife, Lonnie, and I just cried. And I told her, I said, hey, I do not feel good about myself and I am depressed and I feel like I need to do something different in my life. I don't know what it is yet, but I gonna make some changes and I hope in a year from now this conversation is gonna be different
Mm.
because there was just at the time I didn't feel good as a person, as a human being, like trying to find purpose. I didn't feel good as a husband or a provider because, hey, like, it's someone like I'm doing a ton of work here, don't got, majority stake in this business. I'm doing a lot of the on hands, like on the deck work. Our business relationship is set up in a way where I'm not getting rewarded for the things that all the additional work that I'm doing. And I can't change that right now. We're too far into this. And I felt like there was more that I could do personally to chase my own vision that would help me overall be a better father, be a better husband and things like that. So that New Year's Eve and I said, hey, I'm gonna do something different. And so the first thing that I had needed to do was leave my partnership. And in March of 2023, I started having those conversations, said, hey, guys, sent the email out like, hey, I I think it's my time to go. Right now, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'll keep you updated, but I don't know what it is, but I think it's just time for me to go from this relationship. So in March, at the end of March, and they were like, I think it was like on a Tuesday. It was like the end of the month, and they're like, "Okay, here's the paperwork." And we went through all like the tough conversations there, and on all the legalities there of leaving my position. And they said, "Hey, okay, as of today, you're done." And then I think by that Thursday, I said, "Hey, I'll help this transition go smooth and get other people in the right place." And they like, nope. Hey, we're just going to rip the Band-Aid off. You're going to be gone on Thursday.
Man,
And I said, so I couldn't
that's
really,
rough.
yeah, it was rough because I didn't even really get to say a big goodbye. I really,
Yeah.
literally in my classes said, hey guys, today is my last day. So I made this social media to make up for it. I made this little social media post about leaving and stuff. And I think by this time I still didn't really know what I was gonna do. Of course, the thought like my wife and I played around with different things. Of course, we have little kids, so we played around with different ideas of, hey, let's move somewhere. We have this freedom now. We've been here for X amount of years. Let's go somewhere else. And we even never thought because we had been going to this is the chapter in our lives. We've been going to all these indoor kids play places. A big idea was to start an indoor kids play place for kids from like, 1 to 5 years old and stuff. So that was one of the ideas. We didn't know what we were going to do, but the idea of creating a new gym was of course also there too. But when I left, I didn't want to tell anybody what I was going to do So I really just left and said, "Hey, everybody, it's been great. This has been life changing. I hope it's been as great for you as it has been for me. I'm gonna go. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but I'll see you later." And I I had been started looking up places for either a kids' play place or a gym, or we were like, let's start a coffee shop or something. And I started just looking up different spaces and places around the city, outside of the city, the suburbs. I walk into one place where we're at now. It was one of the first places I ever saw. And if you ever saw pictures of this place, you know how beautiful it is and the kind of energy it gives off. And I walk into this place and I said, this would be a good gym. I think it's a little big. I don't know if I can afford this. And I walked out and I looked at 20 other places, but man, there was something that just spoke to me about this space. And I came back and hoping it was still on the market. And we got the keys to this place. So yeah, I took a month to figure out because on May 1st, we got the keys to this place and then we opened up July 1st. We had 2 months. We had 2 months to
Wow.
build this place out.
Yeah.
Still didn't tell anybody about what I was doing. I kind of just sheltered down with, I locked the doors and there's paper on the windows. And I kind of just started building out this gym with just me, my wife, and like my closest family members and like closest friends, people that I grew up with. And I still didn't really tell anybody about this gym that I had any other kind of relationship with because I didn't want that karma. I'd be like, "Hey guys, I'm opening up this gym. Come on over." So I just always told myself,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm just gonna do what I love here and eventually announce it." But I'll tell you, for 2 months, looking at kind of how we got, the funds going away, the mess around the place, wondering if this is gonna work. In being by myself after being around people for so long, I remember thinking like, "Is this gonna work? What if this doesn't work? Well, what if nobody cares when I come back? And if I start this thing up, what are we gonna do? I don't have a plan." And if you people know, I'm not really good at like future planning. I kind of just work in the moment and I kind of like take care of like the tasks that are ahead of me, working towards like if I have this vision that I'm working towards, I'm just gonna do the next thing that I can do to get to that vision. I'm not gonna plan it out, not gonna spend the time planning it to a fault because I could do things a whole lot better, but that's just kind of how I operate. And I was like, okay, I want to open up this. And it's like a gym is what it is. Got the space, it's on the space. Gotta get funding, gotta get this thing. Like it's just one little thing. And with proper planning, we found ourselves into a lot of situations where it's like, I don't know if this is going to work. Are we going to do this on time? But, anyways, eventually, as the July 1st was coming up, I was like, okay, I think it's time to start letting people know. So I started posting these little things online, like these little glimpses of construction and these little stories of like, hey, I wonder what makes a good gym. And I'd go into these thoughts that I have been having, like, what makes a good gym? Like, is it the equipment? No. Is it the workouts? No. Like, what is it? People talk about community, but what does that even mean? This overused word of community and stuff. Like, what does it mean to be at a good gym? And so I started like posting these things online, and people are like, what's Paul doing? And eventually I made this big announcement in this of a past photo of us in this empty space. I'm like, hey guys, like this is the next chapter. We're opening up July 1st. And we had a you know, big grand opening and people started like popping in while we were still building the place out. And we opened up our doors and I literally, and again, no marketing except those little social media posts. No, I thought going into it, I was like, hey, we'll drop pamphlets at people's doors across the place. And I just opened up the doors and hoping people would come in, not telling anybody. And then people just started trickling in, and a lot of old faces that I knew, some new faces that I didn't. And we opened up our doors, and more words started getting around, and people started coming in off the street, and people that have been in the neighborhood, that were wondering what the building was going to be, started just popping their heads to the door. And we, with no marketing whatsoever, but it was all just kind of word of mouth and luck. We've been growing ever since. It's knock on wood, pretend knock on wood. I hope we continue to do so.
Yeah. And you're at how many members now?
We just reached over 200 of like people that do like classes and open gym and personal training and stuff. And So that's yeah, when I did all again, I'm not a good planner, but I had to convince my wife that this was gonna be okay. So I did the projections and stuff, and I walked through it with a couple people on, like, what it would take to keep this going and what it would take to keep the doors open and pay the bills
Mhm.
and members that we would need. Man, I projected we'd be in the red for a very long time, and I'd have to just tell my wife, like, "It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay." Okay, but luckily, I was never in that position, and, the doors are still open, and we were able to keep those doors open pretty early, and it's just been about orienting to just creating a good, comfortable, welcoming space for people to just have a good time and feel connected and feel welcomed and feel good about who they are, and just creating a good experience for the people here so that they just naturally think, well, why wouldn't I want all my friends and family and my significant others be here too? So now I have
Mhm.
this kind of open canvas to create something that, like, hey, I'm going to go all out with these people. And that's just all out, just, just love and good feelings, And again, I don't know. There's a lot of things I could do a whole lot better, but it's just going off just those values that I have is hopefully been working out.
I love this way that Paul has led with his values as he has built Hiraya. And interestingly, it's not even like a set of words like we might think about with values. He's all about helping people love who they are, which is something that he mentioned that he worked on in his own life experience. Loving the person that he is and making sure that people feel good when they walk into the space and even long after they leave it. Everything is centered around that. It wasn't a list of 10 core values or a finely tuned project plan for his opening. It was designing a business around the experience that he wanted to create. I think often we may put words or steps on paper, but the intention can kind of get lost. And with Paul in the opening of Hiraya, the intention was always front and center. There's this deep sense of knowing and how he operates, and I just think that's really special. Now, as we rejoin the conversation, we get to hear more from Paul about his experience and all the ways, big and small, that he translates that intention into action in the experience. I think the results speak for themselves, right? That you're building this huge community. It's happened really organically with you being true to who you are, right? And just building the types of relationships that you like to build. And so I think it's evident that you're doing a lot of things amazingly well. This idea of experience, right? We talked about community and relationships and connection, but like you mentioned you're creating this experience. And what is that experience like? What was the experience that you wanted to create?
Sometimes I more so feel like I'm not doing anything right at all, and and there's a lot of things I can do better. But the things that I kind of think about as people just walk through the door, is for people to feel like they matter and that they're seen and they're talked to. And no one ever comes into this place or takes a class without, whether it's the coach or anybody else, to know their name and know where they're from and see what they're into and what's going on in their day. It's easy to feel really lonely. And I personally, and this whole thing is just a reflection of who I am, because in my life, I have felt very lonely very often, very, looking for connection. So I think, like, well, let's make this more about just people coming in for a mandatory workout because they feel obligated to work out, or they feel and let's turn this into something a little bit deeper. And let's people know, like, the experience here is that, like, the goal here in multiple ways, whether it's through me or the coaches, or definitely through kind of creating the interactions and relationships that people have with each other. And that's what I kind of look at, tell my coaches, like, hey, we're responsible for making sure that people know each other, because we can only do so much. So let's create
Mm.
these great interactions with people so they can foster these things and with themselves and do that for other people. And they can see when people are a little out of place or a little or feeling out of place and feeling a little less lonely, and let that kind of organically happen within itself. But it's really helping people feel like a little it's that they come here and they think, "Oh, I didn't know a gym could be like that. Like, I didn't know people would talk to me like that. I didn't know it'd be cool to just feel comfortable in my skin and feel proud of who I am, and it's not, because a lot of fitness out there is about fixing you and fixing your problem. There's something wrong with you, and you have the best solution to everything you've ever hoped for. And I I think, like, here it's like, hey, first, let's just create positive beliefs around people for just being who they are and moving the way that they do and not forcing anything that they have to do certain things. But, like, first, let's let people explore who they are and what they're able to do and love what they're able to do, and let them just grow that passion for themselves. And that's what everything has been about. And even from a space standpoint, if a lot of gyms can be, like, dark, intimidating, and intense, but we wanted to create a place that was really welcoming and homey, and like, hey, like, let's create a place that feels like home to people, that there's couches for people to sit on, that people could work here, that if they wanted to, and people do work from here throughout the day. And you know what? In the bathrooms, let's put some towels. I told my wife, like, hey, I want to put towels. I want to put towels for, like, let's roll up towels all nice. Oh, she created the nice part. I was like, let's put towels in the bathroom for people to use in case they need it. And well, we didn't know how many people would need towels, but that but let's put all the amenities like people would need, and put mints and Q-tips and hair ties and everything in there. Let's make this feel like home to people, and they'll treat it like their home, and people
Yeah.
do, and we want it like a nice, welcoming, inviting space, and that's really big on me and my culture, is to just the Filipinos are really big on just hospitality and welcoming, the stranger on the street, and the needy and stuff. So we naturally build that stuff in here at the gym at Hiraya.
Yeah. I'm just going to take a second to recognize like there's a lot of intention in what you do, in I'm sure the people that you hire that are building the culture of the community there, and even just those little details of would it be easier to just have paper towel? Absolutely. You don't have to wash a bunch of towels, right? And not be a welcoming place for people to shower and hang around and all of that stuff. And I recognize in like so many of the ways that you operate that like doing something that might be a little bit harder operationally, but is the right thing to do for the vision that you have and the experience you want to create makes it so worth it. And I've heard 18
Yeah,
examples of that so far in what you've shared. And I just think that's really
yeah.
cool.
I wanna give a shout out if they ever listen to this stuff, and let people know how much I appreciate the team that we have here, of the team of coaches, because that was a big thing, and making sure that this is an experience for them that helps them towards their next best self. And so I really try to, make them feel like loved and supported, and take care of them. And from just a job standpoint, like, well, I can pay these coaches, whatever I want. And from the get go, I picked a number, and that was more than ever, like a lot more than ever I got paid as a coach. And I just had this idea, and the problem is my sister-in-law is, like, as a coach at cycle bar, and I was like, "How much do you get paid for your classes?" And she told me this amount, and I was like, "Well, I don't know if I could do that much, but I can get close to it." And it's more than I've ever got paid as a coach, and I wanna have these coaches feel like they're appreciated and taken care of. And you're gonna pay this one out the gate. And I did the projections on that, and even with projections, like, how many members would we need to pay them more and stuff, so that they can feel like, whoa, this is great. Little did I know that when I told other coaches in the space that aren't at this gym, and people, new coaches that have come on, like, hey, we're gonna pay this much for your classes, they're like, really? Really? What? More than anything, where I'm at my other place. It's more than yours. People usually do this amount and stuff. And so, but that, even though, payroll is like the biggest expense over here, it's a big deal for me. And yeah, plenty of times I'm like, hey, I think it'd be kind of smart to go $5 down, but it's like, no, we're gonna take care of these coaches, make them feel good about what they're doing and feel appreciated. And so we're sticking to it. And I think again, someone might look at that as numbers, like, oh, we
Right.
can take away, we can cut that down a little bit and put that more. But to me, it's like that shows up positively in ways of keeping people here, getting people in because people they need to love being here and they don't like they can't feel like they're just a person to fill the hour. I want them to, and I don't do a great job at like this all the time, but I want them to also feel like that they're a person that that wants to that is growing. And when the new year started, like right when the like before the new year started, like, hey, how can we make 2023 great for you? What are things that you want to accomplish as a person? Like, how can this be more than just the class that you do? Is like, what are these deeper passions that you have that we can start like bringing into the world this year so that you can be really fulfilled? Because they might go, some of them might go start their own gym or something, or do something greater than here. And I hope they do, but I hope it's because like they had such a good experience here, not because they want to leave because it wasn't good enough for them, but they're just inspired to do something greater. And so that's just a big, big, big thing to me too. And we're growing our team. We already have like 6 of them, 5 or 6 of them, and more on the way. So I'm in this position now to work on my leadership skills of delegating and putting people in new positions, or stepping back a little bit and putting people in certain roles, and whether it be operations and or assistant head coach to take care of onboarding and stuff like that. But yeah, yeah, have always been a I can do everything person, but I am learning now that I cannot do everything. So
Good lesson to learn. This is truly a people first business model, starting with hiring people who embody the values that Paul is prioritizing and paying them well above industry norms. Asking them to act almost as ambassadors of belonging by helping members connect and build relationships with each other and creating a space that feels like home, kind of putting that extra expense into having real towels and incurring the labor costs of doing laundry. And also things like having nice furniture that people want to hang out on and stick around, not because they're spending more money if they stay there longer. There's no coffee bar or anything like that he's selling, but he just wants them to stay and make the place their own. Now, all of these are examples of putting that experience and the people's experience first before profits. It reminds me of episode 12 with Tiffany Welton, and she is going against every industry should in her wine bar, and yet her business is super successful. With Paul's, it's the same. Starting with care and not nickel and diming every decision, but really leaning in on investing in people and their experience. And guess what? For both of them, it's really paying off in a financially successful business that supports the vision of what they're trying to create. So I'm going to touch on this more in the wrap up. For now, let's get back into the conversation. You were kind of like an OG content creator, like from early in your career. And one of the things that I love just from a distance watching is like you guys put out some really hilarious reels and just like you're posting things on social media that it is very clear you have a lot of fun. I see you putting your content creation skills to work, but like who's the mastermind behind that? Is it you?
so that the most part, unless someone has a really good idea that we run with, a lot of
Yeah.
that is from the back ends of my mind. And I love creating things. Like I like storytelling and videos and stuff. Am I a pro at it? No, but I like just doing that stuff as like a personal fulfillment. So come our socials, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of things we can be doing more of, but like in terms of the videos and the reels that one would see, it's just me having a lot of fun and just trying to be like, hey, a lot of gym stuff is like people working out, results, performance, before and after,
Right.
hardcore like shots of people sweating and working out. I'm like, well, like let's take a funny, like non-serious approach to this and more like a humanistic side. And there's plenty of different content that we've created, from really funny things to just like we created this one reel on what goes through your mind when you're going into a gym and you think everybody's not going to like you talking, but really everyone's thinking about the shoes that they're wearing or like or like that they have like no one's thinking about you. They're thinking about like their legs are a little ashy, you know, and I need to go put some lotion on and stuff like that. And just other really funny things like not taking ourselves too seriously and just having a lot of fun. The recent one we did this funny Halloween one, and this Halloween reel was like I had just this thought of like the killer Jason or Michael Myers like always catches up to the person no matter how fast they run, and they're always right behind them. And I thought to myself, they must be really fit. They must be really, like, really in shape. So what would it be like if they weren't in shape? And so what if they were really unhealthy? So I had this idea of like the ghost space killers from Scream coming into the gym, and he ends up doing a workout with them, and he's like totally out of shape, and he's like throwing up and just on it. But one like that and just like other things like over celebration, or those are just things that I just random like just think about and like to put on us. And you're right. I'm glad it looks like we're having fun because like we try to have some fun.
So I want to talk about a big opportunity that came up for you recently, which was being an ambassador for Lululemon. And when you mentioned this to me, I think what I heard in it is you're out here doing your thing, you know, building community, building relationships, doing things in a way that feels welcoming and inclusive in your gym, and just creating this space that's different and unique and really special in a lot of ways. And so how did that opportunity come to you, and how are you feeling about it?
So earlier this year, I was presented with this opportunity to become an ambassador for Lululemon. And I like just yesterday, my picture went up in a store and they said, "Hey, we're gonna display your picture in the store. Do you want to invite your friends and family to look at your photo?" And I said, "Well, this is silly. This is weird. This is totally odd, like me." And this all started from earlier this year, just doing everything that we've been doing in terms of like creating community and creating a safe, fun space for people. Someone came through the doors, like a friend of a friend of a friend that said, "Hey, I've been watching you do that works for Lululemon." Her name is Michelle Basana. She's awesome. If Michelle, you're listening to this, thank you for everything. She came in through the doors one time to come to one of our community events we call First Fridays. First Friday is this every first Friday of the month. We do this free community workout where it's open to anybody in the city that wants to come, just have a good time, feeling more connected, and people work out and they hang out and we feed everybody and people just feel a little bit more connected. Anyway, well, she came to a First Friday and then afterwards she said, we were talking and afterwards she said, "Hey, Paul, do you want to come? Can we set up a meeting for you to talk? And do you want to come by the Lululemon flagship store or on North Avenue?" And so I came in and we just chopped it up and talked a little bit more about where I'm at and everything. And eventually this led to her saying, "Hey, Paul, we love what you're doing with your community, and we love how much you love people, and we love how much you love your family. Want to know if you would be open to becoming an ambassador for Lululemon." When I heard that, in that moment, I got a little like choked up about it because in this whole time, after the military, I was tired, getting a little teary-eyed about it. But in this whole time, I have always been trying to figure out my voice and what is like I'm meant to do. And I've done a lot of crazy, weird things trying to find it, and have sacrificed a lot of who I am and the things I wanted on the pursuit of that. And opening up Hiraya is just like, you know what? Don't care what happens in the world. Like the things that are going to happen are people are going to feel great when they come in here. People are going to feel great when they leave here. This place is going to be an example of welcoming safe spaces for everybody so that they can do this for wherever they go in their lives. And at the same time, I'm not going to sacrifice a moment with my family and my kids that are growing up. So I am very like adamant on having them be a part of this, and also like having time with them outside of here so that we can create that relationship that's not always tied to this gym, and I can see them like grow up, and family and community are just the things that I orient to, and to have this opportunity just based off that, when one might think like, oh, you need 100,000 followers or dozens of thousands of followers online, or be
Mm.
the best trainer in the world, which I'm not, or be, have some sort of big, huge impact. To have an opportunity like that, just for it to be doing the things that I love, is like, it's like big validation, like, oh, I am doing something, doing something right. And it's a lot of people, shout out to everybody over at Lululemon, because it's not, people are thinking like, oh, you get free clothes. Like, no, it's not just about that. Sure, they give us stuff, they'll do, but it's been really all about like, hey, what are you passionate about as a person? What brings you joy? And how are you going to how can we create that with people around you, is so that you can have a bigger impact of what you want to do in the world. And it's just, and to me it's like, oh man, am I doing a good job? And they're like, yeah, you're doing great. Like, this isn't about you doing anything different. We're just trying to amplify the things that you're doing as a person,
Yeah.
and as in your case, a business owner. And we want to support all the things that you're doing at Hiraya, and anything that we're doing as a company, and towards our goals and our vision. Like, we can support each other. And so I'm super grateful for that. And again, it wasn't on, it hasn't been on the list and stuff, because I always had thought like, to do stuff like that, there's a a role that I have to play, or an intent that I have to play, or a character that I have to be online on social media and stuff. And that's just, I don't have the time management to do those things. It's cool that that's just played out just from what I do as a person, in person, with here in our community, and anybody that walks our doors. So I'm really looking forward to all the things I get to do with them. And we got some things in the works of taking that, like the visions and the goals that I have, like outside of Haraya, like out onto the streets and to their community. So there's a lot of things I want to do as a person to support the greater Chicago land area and people of color, and my culture and stuff. So, and they have been pretty like supportive. I'm like, hey, let's get those things done. So got some really good things cooking up for the new year, and they've supported a lot of great things that here at the Hiraya, whether it be like, hey, let's buy the food that you get for people for First Fridays, or let's, like, here's some giveaways and some products for your run club and stuff. But it goes to a much deeper level that's gonna play out, that I can't really talk about yet for next year. But I hope it all comes to life.
That's amazing. It just speaks to you doing your thing your way, and it, like you said, the validation of that. I could say this as a business owner too. It's like when I'm doing things my way and opportunities come back to me because of that, it is so affirming that, like, yeah, this is what we're meant to do. We want
Yeah.
to find that sense of purpose and just show up the way that you are. And like the world sees that. It means a lot.
Honestly, just, it really isn't a day that like goes by that I just think like, whoa, this is cool. Like, I've created this for myself. And I haven't felt like, I always felt like had to play towards the circumstances around me, and just make do, or settle. But it's cool to be like, oh, cool. Like, things are playing out. Things could be a little bit better if I was better at certain things. But that being said, this is pretty cool for what has happened and what's going
Yeah.
on right now. So it's like, they did that, and not without the support of my wife and my friends, and the team that I have here. And there were a lot of people, like really close people, that were like, Paul, you can do this. Because up to this point, I didn't have a lot of self-confidence to be able to do that stuff. So I owe it to a lot of people that were like, yeah, like, oh, okay, finally, like, this is good. This is what you're meant to do. And I super thankful for all the people that have supported me up until now, and to the future.
What's next for you personally, not necessarily for your community or the other things that you give your time and energy to, but what's next for you as a leader, as an owner, as a human?
I'm in this point right now where I'm kind of shifting this mindset of like, I feel like I always operate like oh, what are all the things I should be doing for this to be successful, and what are the things I should be doing that other people are doing that I'm not, and I think kind of shifting that perspective to like, what are other things that I can be doing or I could be doing that are deeper than what I think I just should be doing, and I think where that's gonna take me is towards some sort of greater impact outside of these walls, and with
Mm.
with the help and support and of the people around me, I think I have this bigger vision to do more outside of here, through here, like with people,
Yeah.
and have a greater reach into the streets and into the community and to the underserved. And I think it's really what I want to take this and go towards things like you know, mental health and greater impact, because I think we as community, people responsible for community and gym owners, I think we're like, hey, this, whatever, like this is great inside here, and at least this could be the best part of your day, but let's like, okay, well, let's start looking at the other parts of your day and the other days of the week, and how can we, like, I have this opportunity of have all these amazing people around me, like what can we all do together to have a greater impact on not just us, but other people that need it. So I think that's the bigger purpose here. And yeah, that's what I'm aiming for.
I love that. It's like you could take the culture of what you've created and take it beyond the four walls of Hiraya and have an amazing impact on the community. So,
And at the same time, be a really good dad. Be a good dad, and be a good husband, and make sure that everything is great at home, and that my wife feels loved and appreciated for all the amazing things that she has to put up with, that she does, and all the things that she puts up with in these pursuits that I have, because
yeah.
I can get a little overwhelming myself. But when I do this stuff as great as I can, but when I'm at home, I'm just like, this is my time with my family, and but just having my family here with around everybody, and them being a part of this community, and people treating them like it's their kids. Well, it's a beautiful thing, and really looking forward for them growing up into this.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for being on. It was great to have a journey back through your career and the building of Hiraya Training House.
I appreciate being here and having the conversation about it. Thanks for helping me think about things that I haven't thought about in a really long time, and all that stuff is really important.
Wow. All right. We went back into the early days of Paul's career and life and followed his story through to how he's grown his own gym and community to over 200 people at Hiraya Training House and has all these new amazing opportunities coming his way. I love how his personal story is such a huge part of what he's created. There's this greater mission beyond just running a gym into truly helping people love themselves and feel a sense of belonging in the world. A big thank you to Paul for being so generous with sharing so much of himself in this episode. Now, I said earlier in the episode that I would come back to this idea of executing on a vision. Now, in the business world, we often talk about businesses that are values driven and people first. And this can really start to get kind of fluffy and hard to pin down at some point. But Paul's business is an example of that in action. It's about having a vision for what you want to create and not compromising on that vision in your actions, or not starting to pare it down little by little because of the shoulds or the norms or the outdated standards that might exist around you in the industry. I think that happens a lot, starting with something disruptive or truly special and then kind of chipping away at it as reality sets in. I think it's an important step to take to connect with that vision first and make sure that it's really clear and then keep it present in every decision. While he talks about the experience that he wants to create for the members of his community, it's really a culture that extends beyond his team into the folks that they serve. Now, to create a people first culture, if you're a leader of a team within an organization, or maybe you're an entrepreneur with your own business and you serve a community of people or even serve your clients, We can take inspiration from Paul on thinking about this culture as an experience that we create. So maybe you could consider this. What is the experience that you want to create for your people? To map this out, I would start by asking yourself, what are the values at the foundation of this experience that you want to create? For Hiraya Training House, it's all about belonging. Next, ask yourself, how do you want people to feel when they are engaging with you or your product or service or with each other? What lasting impact do you want that experience to have on people? Third, outline where are you going to measure? So, what are the indicators that you've actually achieved that experience? How will you know that you're delivering on it? How will people change or behave differently as a result of this experience? And last, as you create this vision, it's also a really good exercise to anticipate what might get in the way of executing on this culture or this experience that you're trying to create, and know where those tensions are going to lie before you encounter them. This can help you make decisions that align with your vision and know where you can compromise in other areas so that you can hold firm in the ones that matter.